Hey, y'all. Thanks for watching my podcast on Mr. Martin Productions. Today, I have good friend Dave Colescott back on the show. Watch as we talk about a variety of different subjects. I hope you enjoy. Hi, everybody. This is Holland Martin, and thanks for joining me today for special guest, 1976 Marion High School graduate, Dave Colescott. Dave, thanks for joining me yet again.
Holland, you know me, I love being with you, and I feel like when we talk, this time just goes. So I hope I don't bore you today, but it's a
Uh,
privilege and honor to be with you, the historian of Marion High School sports.
Hey, I appreciate it, man, and I'm honored to have you on here too, because I consider you. If there was a Mount Rushmore of Marion Giants, I mean, you'd be up there. There's no doubt. Um, but let's start in, uh, and we've talked on the other ones about the 75, 76, and then on the second one we talked a little bit on the 76. Uh, but let's touch let's go right into when your dad came into Marion, that 64 to 71, 70, 71 era before Coach Green got there. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Dad, Mom and Dad said that. In fact, I picked up some tenderloins in Swayze.
Hmm.
Love Swayze. Mom and Dad spent 8 great years when they were newlyweds, and Dad started out. And we had lunch with one of the stars from that era, Charlie Weaver, who's known
Hmm.
pretty much in Marion. And I think he really thought he'd probably stay at Swayze
Hmm.
after 8 years, but I think there were some changes in the with the school. Consolidations were happening.
Yes.
Swayze was one of the last to go. Miss Cinewall was one of the first, and then of course Madison Grant, Oak Hill. But Dad left in around early 60, 61, and it was a big jump for him because he didn't go to Marion as the head coach. He went to Marion
Mhm.
as the freshman coach and just kind of like working in the feeder system.
Yes.
And his big shot came in late '63. Uh, Jack Givens, the coach, I think he was let go. I think they had three or four coaches in the last 5 years, and
Hmm.
it was funny when he interviewed. It was not funny, but for my dad, but the superintendent, and I have some quotes here. He said, "I'm tired of Marion being the graveyard of basketball coaches." He said, "I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to de-emphasize basketball." And
Mm.
this is before he got his dream job. He said, "We're going to cut your salary of the head basketball coach."
Hmm.
The My dad, his full all of his 6 years, he taught every 6 periods. He was just like any other teacher, and Dad
Hmm.
was a teacher first, so he had 6 periods that he taught, and you're going to cooperate with other sports, and I guess that kind of meant football. So
Hmm.
he took the job, and I hate to brag, but it wasn't just my dad. It was those guys at Marion. But they went in his 6 years. They won 131 and lost 34. And
Wow.
I'll take that winning percentage up with anybody. And at the Marion Coliseum, they were
Hmm.
70 wins and 9 losses.
Hmm. The
So
the current YMCA now in Marion.
yeah. So if you ask any of the 76 guys, I think we owe a lot to we called it Giant Pride. Uh,
Yes.
that 65 team, I think, still has the record. They won 22 in a row.
Hmm.
Players like Clyde Thornell, Rick Harris, Harold Curdy, Steve Ward, Kenny Stewart, Mike Galt, Dick Rohr. I want to name
Yes.
all of them, but those guys were winners. And if you ask me, that put Marion on the map, and they won, like I said, 22 in a row and got to the semi-state. So, you know, to, for us, we had Giant Pride growing up, and
Yes.
those were our heroes.
And the years, I mean, looking at some of the stats here as well, your dad was pretty successful. Come right out, 65, 25 and 3 team, 23 and 8, 21 and 6, and then those memorable 68 and 69 years, 22 and 6 and 68, which we shouldn't have lost that one. And then the 69, 27 and 1 when we ran into McGinnis and that, and that whole freight train. But I did notice too, though, the year after the big McGinnis game, we went 13 and 10, and with graduation and things of that nature. But that had to be a challenge to go from state ranked Marion to kind of reloading a little bit.
Yeah, and not speaking for my dad at that time, 1970, I was in the 8th grade. I think he felt like we were reloading, and I think he saw the next wave coming in because, as you know, you have those up and downs, and I think he felt like not burn out, but I think it was a wild ride, and I think at that time he just felt probably that would be the time for him to ascend to the athletic director. And he was really adamant. He did not want to coach me. So, when I say he didn't want to coach me, he wanted to coach me, but he felt like it was very unselfish. He just felt like it'd be hard to do that. And, between you and I, it was mixed emotions because I really wanted to play for him. But I think there are definitely advantages, but there's also disadvantages.
Yes. And, just kind of with something that came to me, you had talked in one of our other videos about there was a tornado that came through and the cows and all that stuff. And so I was doing my research on something else. There was a tornado that came through First Street, Nebraska Street in 1957. I mean, you were probably maybe in diapers, obviously, but I was wondering if that was the same tornado that possibly was that one, because it was.
No, I think the one that I was, I think in 57, I was born in late in the year, so it depends what it was. But I think everyone remembers. In fact, I heard that it was one of the five strongest tornadoes ever. It was Palm Sunday, and I think it was in 65. But it
65,
took
66.
a lot. It
Over
took a lot of Marion out.
Over by Indiana Wesleyan, the old marsh in that area there, VA. I've heard a lot of stuff about that. But
see, you're young, but we called that the Panorama Shopping Mall. Before it was a mall, it was called the Panorama, and but it was throughout the county, and it sounded like freight trains, and there was a lot of freight trains that come through Marion, west of town, but this wasn't the same kind of freight train. We lost all our windows, and it's scariest experience I've ever been through as far as weather is concerned.
Yes, I've been in one myself. But all right, let's go back to continue to talk about your dad and Marion. Can you talk about just how special of a man he is? I've got to spend a little time with him over the past year or so, and I mean, I just gave him a big old hug today. And you talk about how much of a special man he is.
Well, I tell people he's he was a great teacher first, coach. I think he really impacted a lot of kids' lives. Like you said, he had some great talent, but I think he built a program. A lot of people say Marion, started in 76, and that didn't happen. It started in 64, 65, that great team that I already talked about. Because, as little kids, not little, but, we were, in grade school, and people don't realize that he built the baseball program out at Lincoln Field, but in basketball, he did a lot of great things with the feeder system. He always had meetings with the junior high coaches. Sometimes they got mad because he kind of laid out a lot of drills. He didn't like scrimmages. And when I say he doesn't like scrimmages, he liked control, but he really believed that at that level, we couldn't press till the fourth quarter, because everyone knows defense is ahead of offense. We were just benefactors from really, kind of a great program, but we didn't win a lot. We were all kind of, that team in 75 and 76, we all went from different junior highs. And, we used to get beat a lot from the area county schools because, we were separated, but it
Yes.
really, I think it helped us because we were prepared, for high school. But the biggest thing with Dad is, I think they always say nice guys finish last. He's a nice guy.
Yes.
But I never heard him swear. He taught the kids to be. They dressed well. They kind of
Yes.
looked apart, and But he's even a better father. So for me, he was a dad. And Coach used to ask me when I did something stupid. He said, "Didn't you talk to your dad about the game, basketball?" And I said, "No, my dad was a dad."
Yes.
The
perfect role model.
we enjoyed being together.
Perfect
Yeah.
role model. Now tell me
So-
this. Tell me this though. Where did the nickname Skippy come from? Did they call you that in your
Oh,
youth?
no, I was Peanut because I had big freckles and red hair, if you can believe it. And they had my freckles looked like peanuts. But Skippy came from my present college sweetheart. You can tell I like to eat a lot, especially peanut butter. So I'm a Skippy man, and she's Buttercup. So I kind of like the nickname. But yeah, Skippy comes from peanut butter, and I don't mind people calling me that. I like when you call me Skippy.
Hey, I love it, man. I love it. Okay, so now tell me this. You're known for basketball and even tennis, but you did love baseball. You did play baseball, but what were some of the other activities besides sports? Where did you guys hang out at? Back in Marion in the early and mid '70s. I mean, they had the bowling alley, they had the skating rink, Hanks. I mean, where Kmart, where did you guys? What was it to do on a day where you weren't playing basketball or going to practice or things like
Man, you hit me with a question I've never answered. Of course, I'm not going to tell you all my secrets because
that?
that would be given away, But no, if you go back to the 60s, we didn't have one establishment that we all missed, and that was Buzz and Custer's. So
Okay.
if anybody knows anything about Marion, you had to go to Custer's Drive-In. What I like to do back then in the summers, I spent a lot of time at the lake. It was sad we didn't have a boat, but we sure had a lot of friends that had boats.
Yes.
So we'd go up to the lakes, either we'd go to Salamone or Mississinawa Reservoir, and then we branched out more and went up north to the lakes. During the year, pizza was big. People don't realize though, I stayed busy. I had homework, but hanging out. I remember going to IP Humperdinck's. That was where I got all my Mr. B's fashion. We got all our leisure suits and all that. But hanging out usually was. I like going to get pizza, and you already said it. Loved any sport. Loved the bowl. Loved the fair. We just we did anything we could do where there was people around, but the best thing, we did things around the school. And I think it's important, but I just enjoyed playing, three sports. In the summer, I played Legion, but I just enjoyed hanging out with, all our friends. And
Yeah.
we kind of did stuff. And the only thing I didn't do that my peers did, they got to go out for lunch, but I never got to because I was Jack Colescott's son, and we couldn't technically go out to lunch. So
It usually meant
I never
trouble,
did that.
It usually meant something was going to happen that you kind of didn't want to happen.
Well, I went out one time to Burger King, and I'm not the smartest guy, but when the parking lot was empty every time between 11:45, 11:30, and 12:30, you'd think that somebody in the administration would realize that everybody was going out, for lunch. But I said, well, I'll do it one time, and I tried it one time,
Mhm.
and I got suspended.
And that was it, one time and the only time.
All I wanted was a Whopper. I couldn't even get a Whopper. One time I had, and I'm not complaining about a cafeteria food, but I just didn't understand that. But that was a downside I guess, being who I was and being on the team.
Mm-hmm. And can you speak to that too? Because kids are kids, but especially in Marion, we will pump a kid up in the 8th grade, 9th grade and say, hey, here he is. And sometimes those kids do great things and sometimes those kids don't. But could you talk about having the not a target, so to speak, but say, hey, that's Coach Colescott's kid, that's, and you had to be straight every time, you had to, you had to play that. And kids will be kids, but if you talk about the pressure having to do that, you wouldn't want a scolding from your dad, that'd be the worst thing, to have to disappoint him.
Yeah, yeah, that's the key word. But well, first thing, it's funny you said that. I wasn't targeted, and I think that was what was great about the '75 team. Probably Acord and Lester and Harris and Pearson. Maybe they thought they would be really, really good, but you got to remember, yeah, I was known at the as Jack's son, but I didn't grow until between my 8th grade and freshman year. And it's funny because a lot of these players that we were talking about in that book that they're writing about, the great ones. I mean, these kids, like, I know Monty Tao or Kyle Macy, a lot of these great ones. I mean, they came in as a freshman averaging 25 a game.
Yeah.
And, if anybody would have said to me, and we can talk about the 74 team, my sophomore year, but no one had earmarked us that we would be state champions. It'd been 49 years since we won one. And up until 75, I think halfway in the season, we weren't even rated. So I had a little luck there, but I'll tell you what was hard about being the only downside, and I'll tell you that there's so many more positives about being my dad's, son. But I'll never forget in Little League, I hit a inside the park home run, and I was rounding third, and I was quick. I was getting it, and I wanted to get home. And was I out? I don't know. It was in baseball. It was a bang bang play. No replay back then. And I'm only 10 years old. And my dad, luckily, I got to spend a little time with him. He's the assistant coach, and I slide in, and he called me safe. And I'll never forget the manager from the other team. I think it was Suitors. He came flying out of that dugout. And, I shouldn't have stayed there. I learned later that I stayed away from anybody arguing, but I was just a young kid. And I wanted to hear what the manager said. He got in my face and screamed at me that the only reason I was safe is because I was Dave Colescott. And, that hurt me a lot because, I just wanted to be I always wanted to be one of the, one of the team members. And, I did get probably too much adulation and too much notoriety, but, I was fine with just winning and playing and having fun. But, that was a downside. But the positives, I mean, think about it. I tell people we played in front of 6,500, 7,000 people. We had an organ. We were on the radio. People like Jim Brunner and Norm Wolfe and Bill Fowler. We were on TV. I actually signed autographs. So I'm sorry. I can't complain about that. I mean, so I guess with the good, but I had a friend of mine in college, and he played after school in New Jersey, and he played in front of 300 people. So when you talk about people put you on the pedestal, that's okay. But I'll tell you, it was a thrill that when you go into that Marion Giant Arena and it's full, and then you hit a shot at the end, and then you just hear nothing but the screams.
It's chill bumps.
It's a rush. It's a rush I'll never forget. And we had the greatest fans, greatest students, greatest. It was fun. So I look at it as so many positives, and it was an honor and a privilege to be a part of it. And
Yes.
I had a responsibility, and really what motivated me was I just love talking trash in the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
Giant pride, and we always talked about who we had coming up, and to
Yep.
me, that's what it's all about. The not
Mm-hmm.
talking trash. I didn't talk on the court, but the kids and we just wanted to beat other schools, and that's what it's all about.
That's what it is. Okay, let's go into that sophomore year just a little bit toward the end. Now, we had a home game against Northrop. We lost that game. Walter Jordan just went crazy. We lost that game by 28 points. Uh, First 10 to 12 games in as a Marion Giant, getting good run, and then we run into this buzzsaw. Uh, what can you recall about that Fort Wayne Northrop game, your sophomore year against Big Walter Jordan?
Um, First of all, it's the only time I felt like that. Well, first of all, he's one of the greatest players I played against, and
Mm-hmm.
I realized that we were as a team just average after you. There was two games, and I'll go through another one, but that I think if you look at it, that was the worst loss we've ever had at home. They're over 30 points, and
Yes.
he would come down the court, and I'm not lying, take one or two dribbles and just let it fly.
Boom, boom, let it go.
And he's 6'4". I mean, whatever
Mm-hmm.
he was. I mean, how do you
Yes.
stop that? And I just laughed. I said the first time he shot it, I said, well, that's good. We're going to get a rebound. We're going to go. And nothing but net. So, they won the state. Bob Dilly was the coach. I think they
Yes.
had a guy by the name of Muff, but you know that's you laugh. I don't believe you learn a lot by losing, but
Mm-mm.
that
No
year
moral
we
victory.
had coach said, coach said we had 11 guys that could start. So Bill was masterful. What he did was he was just trying to figure out, like it's sort of like in your chemistry or a professor. He was working with so many,
Yes.
different people, and it was funny how he came out with really six. He came out with Harris, Lester, Acord,
Mm-hmm.
Flynn, and Pearson. And, that was kind of, and I'm not saying the rest weren't, but that was kind of what he really, I think,
Yeah.
started implementing his core. He had some core players in the 3 years before, but he lost two sectionals. And he really, I think at that time, started with his own signature team and his style, and he really went
Mm-hmm.
to the matchup defense. But I got to tell you, it was one of the hardest years I ever played. But the one I remember more than Fort Wayne Northrop, we beat Wabash and Elkhart first weekend, and
Mm-hmm.
I got a lifelong lesson. Anybody knows me as my people say I have confidence. Well, I think I did because I was prepared. But
Didn't get to play.
Bill helped me. Well, Bill
Yep.
helped me because I was the only sophomore in that group. There was seniors and there were juniors. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't start. I came in against, now he knows it's Wabash. Well, I don't know. I just want to wear a Marion Giant uniform. I don't care. As long as I wear a Marion, I was happy the rest of my life. Well, I learned that you got to set your
Mm-hmm.
sights a little higher. So I think I got 6 points. Holland, you should have seen me at school on Monday. My head was this big. I
Mm-hmm.
stopping everybody. I said, "Do you see me out there? Do you see me?" I was
Mm-hmm.
pointing. I was talking to my friends. So I came to practice, and Bill was waiting on me. And
He didn't like that.
if you know what I mean, he was going to cut that head about half. So I don't know. I did something stupid. I threw a behind the back pass, or I think I shot a shot without passing. I don't know. Just did something stupid. I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
tell you what, Holland. I have never been yelled like that in my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
He
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 laid
said
into you.
we have. No, he didn't get into me. He laid me out. he even imitated my mom Marge and said, I don't care, you know, if your mom makes you brownies, and he called me some names, and he said, I don't care if your dad's my boss. And man, I gotta tell you, he hit me pretty hard, but what he said was very, very true. And he said, you a lifelong lesson. He said, you're getting ready to go into a game against Anderson at the Wigwam.
Yep.
And he said, they're gonna rip you up. And he said, you're not going to start. He said, but you probably won't even play. So we go into Anderson, and you talk about intimidating, and they had that full court press, and they had their big guy, you know, guarding me out of bounds. Do you know what the score was at the end of the first quarter?
No.
22-2.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Because we ended up losing by 20.
Yeah.
So they had you guys up. Yeah.
Yep. We played them
20.
even. Yeah.
Wow.
But you can't start out in the whole 22. What Dad did against Monty Tao, but for the most part, you're not going to go on the road and win. But it was a lifelong lesson that that and playing against guys like Walter Jordan and seeing the other guys in the state. So I will tell you that 74 was an important year, but it was a hard year.
And looking at the stats, that Fort Wayne Northrop game was the third loss out of 4. You know, it started with Lafayette, then Madison Heights beat you, then Northrop, and then 4 in a row. North Central beat you down there in Indy, and we come home and got 2 in a row, but then we lost 2 again to Kokomo, Howarth, and Muncie Central. I mean, that's, you know, losing 6 out of 8 toward the end of the season, man. I mean, it's almost like was it an implosion? It just seemed like things were just, you know.
No, it's a great question. What it was, and the stat that you're going to, and it again, the word we were an average team that year with potential.
Yes.
Now remember, we lost the last 2 sectionals, so we kind of were, you know, we were kind of doing that same average, and the big stat that you're getting at, and it was, and I have it down, we were 2-5 in the NCC.
Yes.
And did we play worse? Probably, but as I said with Northrop, the level of players and the teams were just better than we were. And I'm not knocking anybody on that team, but I think it was a learning experience that we all understood. If again, if we wanted to win the state, but we were just average. So that's what I was trying to say. That everybody thinks that, oh, in 75, 76, these guys were so great. No, we weren't great.
74, yes. Because
we weren't.
I'm sorry, but
no, go ahead.
What I'm looking at is in the regional, and we talked about it in the other video, a regional against Huntington, you got kicked in the head and you weren't able to play against Logansport in the finals. Can you talk about the scenario, how that happened?
Yeah, so I think the big thing in 74, 2-5, and at the end of the year, I think Bill was trying to build us up. So really the biggest thing we had to do was win a sectional, because he'd lost 2. And people don't realize it. I'm not talking bad about Bill Green, but there were a lot of people in Marion that wanted to, he didn't feel that he was in the best position. And I'm not talking bad about a Hall of Fame guy and a great coach.
But early on, the first 5 or 6 years, tough.
It was tough. So we had to beat Elwood. We beat them in the sectional. Had to beat Madison Grant. Madison Grant won the year before, and so we won the sectional, and that was huge. Now, do I think we could have gone to the state? No. Do I think we should have been in the semi-state? Yes.
Yes.
So the Huntington game, and I'm not saying I'm that important, but I was starting to play better and become the point guard. And I'll never forget, it's the worst injury. I had a lot of injuries, but it's probably the worst one I ever had. And I was going after a loose ball. And I was on the floor and I had my head about, half a foot up on there. And there was this guy, he was tough, from Huntington, his last name was Thorne. I gotta look him up on, see if you can look him up so I can talk to him.
Yes.
But he was going for the ball, but he had Chuck Taylors on. The reason I know, he stepped on my head and the imprint of the shoe, the Converse had the, and
So
it
he
was on my,
stepped, you had Chuck Taylor print on your head.
yeah. And
Wow.
everybody could hear the whiplash on the floor.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember anything else from that year. I don't remember that game we won, but I didn't play in Logansport. Now, do I think we could have beat him? Yes, because we beat him. We beat him by 6 points during the regular season.
Yeah,
I don't know if we could have beat him, but yeah. So, but anyway, I'm not saying I made that much difference, but I would have liked to have played in that game, but so I didn't. But I was. It was funny that what they did. They didn't even. All I had was smelling salts. They didn't take the hospital, and I got to tell you, for about
severe.
2 or 3 months, I was foggy, and I still. What's sad about it, I don't remember anything from that year much about the games, especially at the end. I don't know why. I got my bell rung pretty
violent hit. So now, did you play? You played baseball sophomore year, didn't you?
Yeah, I played. It took me. I think I waited at least a few weeks, but I was still having problems with light and headaches. But I played. I didn't play great, but I hope you talked to my friend Jeff Timmons, because he was a pretty good player that year, my sophomore year.
I have talked to Jeff. I did talk to him, and I gave him that, told him about that thing that you had jotted down when we had seen each other the other week. So I'm definitely going to get him on. But we talked about that 75 season in depth in the other two videos. So I don't really want to talk too much about that 75 team. But the 76 team, and we talked a lot about the 76 team too, but what I'm really proud of is when Joe Neal went out, at the Newcastle game, and you guys won that 3 or 4 in a row there. That was pretty, vital to kind of finishing that year. And then you hit the last second shots on the next couple of games there. So, but then you didn't play against Kokomo. What was the reason why you didn't play?
I think something around my back. I had a lot of. It was funny. They put me in traction just to get the muscles in my back, but I would take a lot of falls, and I think it just started to, back then beds they didn't. I think sleep's important, and all I know is I couldn't have the range of motion, and I kind of lost the step, and I think it was good that I set out a game for the tournament. But yeah, to answer your question, I really believe that was that's when we gave away the NCC, but that's why I felt better about that team, that we were good that year in 76, but we should have won the conference. But that's probably the greatest 5 or 6 games that that I put together individually. I didn't look at it a lot, but I got to tell you that you were nice to me, but the wheels fell off against Anderson and Richmond, and I was personally responsible. I played terrible. I think one game, I think it was Richmond, I was something like 5 for 30, and Anderson, I missed free throws. So we could have been 8-0 first 8 games. But so I really felt like I was getting used to, in 75, come on, all of us averaged about the same. I think all of us were double figures. I think Lester was almost like 9.5. So everybody of the 5 guys, we just picked which one, that we had a better matched up against. So, but in 76, it was new, Holland, because I was like, I've just felt the pressure a little bit early.
In fairness, though, you only lost to Anderson by 1 at the Wigwam. And then on that one to Richmond, way down there at the Tiernan Center, you only lost by 2. So, it's tough playing in those environments back then. It culminated into a state championship versus Rushville, 82-76. Now, let's not belabor that because we've been on that so much, but you didn't play baseball your senior year of high school. And there may be a little, how do you feel about not playing baseball?
I didn't regret anything from my high school playing days other than maybe, not getting hurt against Huntington to see what we could have done.
Mm-hmm.
You always have things that you wish, but my dad was big on making me do everything. But I had to walk into Art Caldwell, the baseball coach's office,
Mm-hmm.
and tell him I wasn't playing baseball. And it's still something that, I didn't think I had a choice, but, I let a lot of guys down on that baseball team because,
Mm-hmm.
I played as a sophomore.
Yeah.
Do I regret it between you and I? Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
I just felt at the time I just needed to devote, caught up in all that, state championship and all that. And,
Mm-hmm.
but looking back, I think we could have done something. I don't know. But if I were those guys, I would have felt, that, one thing you learn in sports, you're there for each other. And,
Yes.
my junior year, I had 4 seniors. They were there for me and they took me under their wings,
Yep.
even though they teased me a lot. But quite honestly, Mr. Caldwell, Art was great about it. He and Dad were great friends, just like Bill Beekman, the great tennis coach, are good friends. Bill. But
Yes.
yeah, I'm glad you asked that. It's something that I have never felt good about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, no matter how old we get, we always, I always say, I look in the mirror, I see this, but there's still that young high school kid that used to play football and run track and do all that stuff. And then, it's just kind of, it's tough as we grow. What is the name of your book? Is it finished or is it still in, you still
Yeah,
writing it up?
it's not really. His name is Ed Snyder.
Okay.
Billy Shepard introduced me to him. He's finishing that this summer. It'll be out this October. So I would love for you to see it. I had a good time talking to him. His name's Ed Snyder. He's from Indianapolis, but he's just writing about the great experiences that we had.
But now let's get into North Carolina. Now that freshman year, you played 18 games. Didn't it wasn't a whole lot, but I wanted to talk on the Purdue game. There was a Purdue game that was played. Now you got 1 minute and 1 foul. Tell me about that game. But we ended up winning that. What do you remember that freshman year at Purdue game?
Yeah, so my freshman year, I broke my foot, and I didn't agree with it, but Coach Smith said early in the year it was bothering me, but bottom line, I had a crack in my foot, and Carolina floor was real hard, and I wasn't going to start because Phil Ford was the All-American,
Yes.
So and I knew that. The reason I went to Carolina, I wanted to do what I did at Marion, and I wanted to win.
Yes.
And but what's funny that I don't think a lot of people realize, I think people are close to the family, you talk about why I picked Carolina. There was only one school that I was going to, and that was Purdue.
Okay.
As a kid, because, my hero was Mount, and other than Billy Shepard, watching him at Carmel, Billy was probably my hero in high school, but
he coached the Marion Giants.
That's right.
He coached them very briefly, but he did coach them.
He's a real deal. So, but being a Boilermaker, I just figured I'd go there. And Dad was good friends with Coach King, and then the athletic director was also Mr. King. So there were two Kings. And I'll never forget, they had Seasting, Macy, before he transferred. They had
Yes.
Eugene Parker and Bruce Parkinson. And like, you think I'm not going to play at North Carolina? I'm definitely not playing at Purdue. So it wasn't like Carolina was second. It's just, as a kid, I never thought, and that's what I feel sorry for some of these kids. They're way ahead of themselves. I can't speak for anybody else, but all of us in high school, I exhausted everything.
Yes.
Of course, I dreamed about playing in college, and ultimate goal playing in the pros. But I had my high school career, and I feel sorry for kids that are recruited in the 7th and 8th grade. I wasn't that good, so I didn't have that. And I guess it's okay.
Damon Bailey and different guys like that. Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess it was just, I was lucky. But making the decision at Carolina, Dean just won the Olympics in '76. So I was really excited about going. But to answer your question in a long way, it was great to go against those guys at Purdue, even though I didn't play, because that's where I wanted to be. And I think Walter Jordan was there. Jovan Price played at Purdue, but I wanted to beat those guys, and I never did get to play against Macy. But what I learned also, Holland, is I learned how the guys that sat on the bench when I played a lot felt. And you talk about how I didn't realize how tough it was. I could shoot anytime I wanted, for the most part. All of us could, but it's nice to have that confidence that Bill had in me.
Yes.
But the system at Carolina is different. His main focus, especially with guards, is to pass and play defense, which I like to do, but I like shooting a whole lot more than I do like playing defense. And but it was more of a system and more of a regimented. But it was fun, and we beat Notre Dame on St. Patrick's Day, and then we lost the national championship to Marquette, and I think we should have won that too. But we came in second that year, but that was a hard year, because in addition, we lost my grandfather, passed away.
Yes, that was when we talked on the other video.
Yeah.
As close as you were with your grandfather, it was tough for you to focus on college.
He was my hero, and of course, mom and dad. But that was my he was my I don't know, he was my angel, and I get choked up talking about it, because I'm 550 miles away, 600 miles away. It was in the spring, but that was to have your dad call you and say that a man that was bigger than life, I thought he would live forever. I still hadn't gotten over, but I sure didn't grieve. But anyway, so that was a tough year, going from a great situation at Marion. Like I said, we weren't thought to win it both years, but the level of play was a lot different, and the total experience was just different. But I missed home a lot.
Yeah. Now, that sophomore year, you did play 31 games, career high. Junior year, you didn't play as many, and senior year, junior year was 26 games, senior year was 28 games. But even though with all that, you did play, a lot of games. But there was one that you just kind of touched on. You were talking about being enthusiastic, even though you weren't playing. I was watching the game. I think it was UNC at NC State. It was kind of they were up 40-19, and it was a bunch of technicals and stuff like that. But you were on the sideline rooting, and that was the one where Dudley Bradley stole it at half court, just bang that baby down, and then you were just excited. I was making sure I was watching where you were. You weren't in the game, but you were cheering your teammates on, and then everybody ran off the court. So you might have been the first or second one. Now that is what teammate is all about, and that's why I brought it up. I was looking for Dave. He's on the sideline next to the coaches, but Bradley steals and bangs that ball, and you're jumping like you hit the shot. And I love that.
Yeah, well, why I didn't play
It
those
hurt your
games.
eye. You had
Yeah,
a sore eye.
I hit Jaminski hit me at the elbow and broke my orbital bone. But
Yeah.
our junior year, we beat Michigan State that year, and our starting five was, I thought if we had a center, we'd have been great. But it was I started point. Phil graduated after my sophomore year. My first 2 years, first year I broke my foot. Second year, I played behind Phil. And I should have grown a little bit, but I just went in the game for only a couple minutes, and I made sure I fouled somebody so I get in the scorebook. But the junior year was great because I always wanted to start, and I thought we could have won it that year. Dudley Bradley was the one that he stole that ball from Clyde Austin. I got to tell you, Holland, Clyde never got over that because Dudley had the quickest hands, and he, to this day, he says he didn't even see him take it, and the game was over.
Like over him and another guy, I think, and they trapped him, and next thing you know, Bradley had that thing. Woo.
Yeah, and
it was amazing.
We had Al Wood that year and Mike O'Corn, and then we had Chicky Yoniker. But probably the biggest disappointment my senior year was I had a chance to play with Worthy. And I hurt my knee, and he broke his foot real bad. In fact, they thought James Worthy would never play again because he broke his foot like I did. So that probably was the biggest disappointment, to have knee problems. And I think, my game, I was all about quickness and speed.
Yes.
And I lost 2 steps, and that wasn't fun my last year.
Now that junior year, you beat Michigan State, number 3 Michigan State, in December by 70-69. Was Magic on that team?
Yeah, they had. That's the one that Magic and
Did
Bird
you have
showed.
to guard him?
No, luckily Dudley did. I guarded a guy named Donnelly, but they had Jay Vincent. I think they had Whitehead was on that team. That's why I think we could have won it because people don't realize in tournament play, it's how you match up against teams. And some teams, I couldn't have guarded Magic. He was 6'9", and I'd have fronted him, but they would have thrown it over.
Yes.
But we really, I thought we could have beat them, but they got a lot better. It'd have been a good game, but we got upset by Penn, Chuck Daly's team, and we weren't looking at Penn, and we should have beat them. We got upset, so.
You got 16 points in that game. I wanted to touch on that, but I wanted to touch on a couple other ones earlier because after that Michigan State win, a couple weeks later, we're at Winston-Salem and we lose to Wake Forest, 59-56. And then right after, then we lose to Clemson at Clemson. And then back to back, we lose to Furman. How does UNC lose to Furman by 13 points?
Yeah, it's a great question. What I learned is, and not to brag, but when you're always winning and you're at the top, people are giving you their fans are there, and what I learned at Marion a little bit in 76, 75. We were like this the whole time, and like I said, we weren't even ranked until second part of the season. It's probably the biggest thing is ACC is not like it now, but everybody from the top to bottom, there was so much parity, and on the road, it was hard to win on the road. And, Clemson, they weren't great, but they had a guy named Tree Rollins, and I'm going to tell you what, he was a tree, and they had Larry Nance. Yeah, so, but every team had a couple of NBA players, and that's what I really, playing at Duke, and I don't know, just all the games were fun because every team gave you their best shot.
Yes. Did it ever point, now you were you played a lot of minutes your junior and senior year. Was it ever, and you obviously belonged, but was it ever a point where you just looked around and like, I'm just a little old kid from Marion, Indiana. I'm playing in 80,000 seat arenas. I'm the starting point guard. Did you ever look around and say, what am I doing here? Did it ever, or did
No,
you say, hey, I belong here?
well, a little bit in between. People ask why you felt so good. I never went into a game that I ever thought we were going to lose.
Mm,
Um, I never felt like that I played against anyone. And I think it goes back to what you asked earlier in the seventh and eighth grade. When you
mhm,
learn your craft, and like I said, I give a lot of credit to those people in our junior highs, like Mo Smedley. I just saw him the other day. He coached Marion, but he was a
mhm.
great junior high coach. Bill Merkel, Mr. Banks. I had so many good coaches, both in
Yeah.
basketball and baseball. But it sounds corny, but when you learn how to play and you practice
Hmm.
and you feel like you have confidence, I never really felt like I took on Isaiah, played
Hmm.
against Phil Ford every day. I'm not saying I didn't get beat, but I never felt like
You competed
yeah,
against
I
the
never
best.
felt like
Yes.
I was ever out of the element. Yeah,
Hmm.
but at times you would sit and look back and go, wow. Um,
Yeah.
Look at that 7 years that I had of my
Hmm.
life, and
Yes.
it probably was the funnest time because uh, I had the luxury of having fun, and I think that what I've noticed lately, it seems like I couldn't play 100 basketball games.
Hmm.
I don't think that's fun, and that's just
Hmm.
me. But
And,
you
and and
know,
that would have been the pros.
yeah.
Would have been, you know.
And I
Um,
like I like playing, baseball and tennis, and I like going to
yes.
school, and I like, playing for a school. So, but yeah, to answer your question, I had 7 years of probably the greatest time to play. 4 years at Carolina, and 3 years at Marion.
Yes. And so let's kind of fast track it a little bit. Let's talk about your last game at UNC, tournament game against Texas A&M. Uh, 1 for 7, 5 points. What do you recall about that? Your last game, suiting up and kind of walking off the court after that loss. Maybe what you felt.
Um, Well, first thing we felt, we missed James that year, but we just that team. It's funny when people talk about like Carolina. Think about it, how bad they are. Not bad, but compared to where they should be this
Yes.
year versus last year. Um, every year you have different players come in, and every team has a different different chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like we never started playing better. We started playing worse. We had a real good year mid-season, but I think the ACC took a lot out of us. And quite
Mm-hmm.
honestly, we were not playing well. I don't have any excuses, but I wasn't practicing, and I wasn't enjoying it because I kind of messed my knee up that last part of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And but, for me, I only hit one shot. But to lose to A&M, I just felt like we didn't have, the team wasn't going in the right direction. I don't think we ever got off the snide after we lost James, because he was so important,
Yes.
inside.
And it had to be tough. So you see what I got behind me?
I like that.
Bird's eye view.
Hey, you're way up there now.
Man, I'm telling you, I seen that
How you
square
doing?
up there, like translucent. The light comes through that thing. But you remember
What'd
it
you
when it was
say?
Carmichael.
That's all I remember calling Carmichael.
Yes, sir. Now, but before we talk about the NBA draft and things like that, let's give Coach. Let's talk about Coach Smith a little bit. One of the most genius coaches and revered. In the Woodens, the kind of guys like your dad. Heldenheim remarks. Could you talk about watching his mental decline before he passed away? Could you just talk about maybe how he was sharp and how things kind of slowly slipped for him toward the end?
Yeah, anyone that knew him, well, first of all, the most brilliant man you'd meet. He met my aunt and uncle when I was in school. There was like 7, 8 years later on Franklin Street. He saw them. He picked them out, called them by their name, and remembered their 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they called me and they go, "Why'd you tell him we were coming?" Now, remember how many people that he met during the year. And he would just remember. And it wasn't association, because if they were with me, you can do that. You can cheat. So what I'm saying, he wasn't a cheater. He remembered everybody. So he always taught us, show people you care by being on time. His lifelong lessons, the 3 words I remembered in business is play hard, play smart, play together. I just put in, rather than play it, work hard, work smart, work together. And that's,
yes.
Those are the things. And people don't realize his practices. He had every minute on, like, opposite of Bill. And I love Bill Green, but Bill didn't have every minute planned on practice.
Yes.
But Dean would have emphasis of the day. He would ask you questions. He wanted you to think. He wanted you to think as a human being. He wanted you to have a great college experience and all that. So his mental decline, he would still call. He would send us the blue. We call it our blue book. It was the every year it would be the kind of the program of the team. He would write notes. You would call him anytime you're having an issue and ask for advice. Now, remember, he started head coach in 63-ish. And by that time, he had 20 years, 6, 7 guys a year. He'd had over 100, 200 kids he had to be dad to. And, I didn't need a dad, but he was a great mentor. He would stop whatever he was doing. If you needed him, he would be there for you. And, so you talk about my dad. To me, you put the Dean Smith, Bob Knight, for the most part. He was, at times, he could be a little bit cantankerous, but he cared about his kids. I think John Wooden, I think Bear Bryant. Those are the guys that I think are in a league of their own. And my dad, I would put my dad up there just like that. They were teachers. They made you better people. To win 100 games, 4 years at Carolina, that's what I wanted, because I wanted to get an education. But I'll never forget, he heard I missed the class, and he had his spies out, and I got to practice. I was running the bleachers, and he said, it's an honor and a privilege to play here, and if you don't go to class, you're not going to play. I was late to one practice. That's the hardest. I thought he was going to kill me. He put a weighted vest on me. I had to go. I had to play in practice with the weighted vest on. And you never wanted to be late. It's all that respect that we learn. And character, and not that I have character, but he had character, and you learn to have character and take pride and do it the right way. So his mental decline, we didn't know about it. What happened was he got operated on for a knee replacement, and I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but he never was the same. I don't know if it was going under. But after his surgery, we all knew. Didn't talk a lot about it, but he
wasn't the same.
And for him, think about that. Of all of his qualities, his mind, as you said, he was brilliant.
Brilliant.
So to take that, not cruel, but it was. It seemed, hard to take, but I got to tell you, losing your he meant a lot to all of us, and he was
Mhm.
we had some fun times because when we'd come in for I worked camp, we all came back, and it was just like a fraternity, not like a
Yes.
real fraternity, but a fraternity of players and people. And it was just fun to come back, and I look at that court, and we'd play in the summertime, and just a lot of fun.
Yes. So let's get into that. Now, you hurt your ankle. Well, you had some ankle injury in high school. Now, was that the same foot that you injured? Was it the other one?
I moved it around. I think every ankle I had broken, and knees. I had a lot of
High
injuries,
ankle sprains and this
but
and that.
yeah, the biggest thrill though, people laughed at me. They said, "You got drafted in the seventh round." I said, "Yeah, I got drafted in the seventh round.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it." But I think I wanted to play because it was a goal. But when I went out there the first year, and
Mm-hmm.
right after my knee, I had knee surgery, and then I tried to come back too fast. In about a month,
Uh-huh.
I got cut from the Utah Jazz, and that was the first time I'd ever been cut, and
Mm-hmm.
it was hard. But what I did, I waited a year to prepare because
Yes.
I was going to give it. I played in the CBA a little bit, but I still wasn't great. But laying off a few months in the winter of that year,
Mm-hmm.
I really felt like that I was going to make my last run to make the pros,
Yes.
and I think we talked about that. But that was probably next to not playing baseball. The biggest disappointment is not being
Mm-hmm.
able, to play after I waited a year and I got to
Yes.
try out, and I actually made the team, and it was frustrating.
Could you talk about the story of how you hurt that ankle? I heard it was maybe in a pickup basketball game or something like that.
Well, like I said, I got cut. So, I took a few classes. I really didn't know what I wanted to do because, my whole life I'd been I went to school, and, I had other interests. But,
Mm-hmm.
my whole life was kind of planned out. And, I really wanted to exhaust it. So after getting surgery and after I got cut, I worked out the whole year. I waited a year. I played a little baseball
Mm-hmm.
uh, in the spring. A lot of the Carolina baseball players played in the semi-pro team. A lot of fun, and I even got a tryout with the Durham Bulls just to kind of play around and pass the time away. And it was
Yeah.
it was great to play there. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
when summer came and camp started, Utah asked me to come back, and
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't anything other than I was trying to come on as a free agent. And they were looking for some guards, and for the first time, Holland, I felt like my junior year. I felt like I had my speed, and I
Yeah.
was in the best shape. And I kind
Mm-hmm.
of learned a little bit playing in the CBA that it's a different game. It was longer as far as
Mm-hmm.
time. The players held a lot more, but I think with the way I like to shoot, I think I could have added something, with 3-pointer. And
Yes.
so Coach Smith, he helped me some, and he got me a tryout, and so I made Utah, and we were just getting ready to made the team. We were getting ready to go to our last the final cuts, and Coach told me that it looked good, and that his name was Tom Nasalki.
Mm-hmm.
So it was September, and I was working out with the team, Carolina team, and Matt Doherty. After we were playing, he was just trying to get in shape and before October practice, and he
Mm-hmm.
said, "You want to play some one-on-one?" And of course, he was a current player, and
Mm-hmm.
me, I graduated, and I knew he couldn't stay with me, and
Mm-hmm.
he was from New York, and he was talking smack, and I said, "No, I don't want to play. I don't want to do anything to get hurt, and I'm not taped."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Oh, let's play just, we won't play hard."
Mm-hmm.
So it started out pretty good. We did make it, take it. I think I was up 11-0, and we were playing to 21,
Mm-hmm.
and I got up 17-0 because I kept hitting and I kept going around him.
Yes.
And I don't know. I think it was, he finally got the ball, maybe had 18-2, and I had it back, and I went around him again, and I laid it over the rim, and he slapped my ankle, and I landed on it, and I just, Coach Smith was there, and I could hear it break, and it just snapped. And you talk about that last game at Texas A&M.
Yes.
That's when life hit me. All those years, my career ended in a September pickup game or a one-on-one game on the Carmichael, and I knew it, and it was swollen, and so I didn't get to go to Utah. And do I think I could have played a long time? Probably not. I would have liked to have made the team for a year or two and see what I could have done, but it wasn't in the cards. And
but you know what? Let's talk about Haynes, though. How did your basketball career end? And then you ended up getting to Haynes and being there until, did you recently retire?
Yeah. So what they say about life, sometimes you plan life and then life happens. So I'm sitting on the floor, and I don't cry. I mean, I never cried over a game because it's just a sport. But it was disappointing to in my mind, I thought I'd go out and wave to the crowd,
Yes.
At least say goodbye some way. Because at Marion, I had saying goodbye, was wonderful. And at Carolina, our last home game, Carmichael was crazy. We were playing Duke. Never did I think that my career would end when I was in just a one-on-one pickup game, and it would be on the Carmichael, and that's how I go out. So I'll never forget. Of course, I had a cast, and the next week I called. Who did I call? Coach Smith. And I'll never forget this. I had 4 interviews. He lined up Russell out of Alabama. He had.
You know what, brother?
Yeah.
Due to technical difficulties, we had to cut things short. We'd like to thank Dave again for joining us on the show. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell to get more hot content from Mr. Martin Productions and the Never Die podcast.